Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hailing Frequencies Open podcast. Today, deep from the heart of Texas, Moonjumper Reviews. Who cares what I think? You're very welcome, sir. How are you?
I am great, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Who cares what I think? Not a lot of people, but I love giving my opinion regardless.
Good, good. And it's a great opinion. But let's start today with film. Do you think straight up entertainment is making a comeback?
You know, I'm encouraged
Mhm.
a little bit. You got your holdouts that your Disneys and whatever that they want to dig in and double down, but you see hopeful signs such as Top Gun Maverick. And I was just watching. Speaking of Tom Cruise, I was watching the trailer of Mission Impossible. The
Mhm.
what's the name of the new one?
Dead
Uh,
Reckoning?
yeah, Dead Reckoning. Something struck me. Somehow, I don't think Tom Cruise is that big of a fan of. Maybe I could be wrong, but unlike some of his Hollywood contemporaries, he strikes me that he's maybe not a big a fan of the Klaus Schwab's WEFs of the world and that the Great Resets of the world. And there's something interesting. I wrote down the quote from sort of the resident a-hole on the IMF, and he says, "This is our chance to control the truth. The concepts of right and wrong for centuries to come. You have to pick a side." Very kind of deep statey, very, and of course, Ethan Hunt is having none of that.
Yeah.
That's like, maybe a interesting little message. So who knows? Of course, then again, we're living in an era of literal Bond villains, so that could just be a
True.
literal Bond villain. But
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows? It's sort of an interesting callback to a lot of what we saw in the first film. You see a lot of the same locations. You see a lot of the I guess you would call them Easter eggs or certainly callbacks or whatever. Even the train scene.
Yes.
There's a kind of the motorcycle scene at the cliff, which kind of harkens back to Mission Impossible 2, which I actually, a lot of people don't like that. I like John Woo. I kind of enjoyed that film. I pretty well have enjoyed all of the Mission Impossible films, except I kind of had a bad taste, for the first one because of what they did to the character of John Phelps and I'm John Phelps, Jim Phelps,
Yeah.
and of course that's why Peter Graves didn't want to do it. He didn't want to suddenly be turned into a villain. That's one of the reasons he didn't do it, and it left a bad taste in some of the co-stars, and it left a bad taste in the mouths of a lot of longtime fans.
One of the original actors from the series, Greg Morris, I
Yeah,
believe he walked out of the theater when he
that's my
saw the
understanding.
original
Yeah, he did.
Mission Impossible because he was disgusted what they
Yeah.
did with Jim Phelps.
That's right. Yeah, he was, and he, I'm sure he had a heartfelt affinity for it. Even after his real life son played in the sequel series
Yes.
that I was watching back in the '90s.
Now, I must say, the only one I didn't like of Mission Impossible was the second one.
The second one, yeah,
I do like John Woo, I do, but I just think it was a little too much,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But I did enjoy the first film. I remember watching it going, wait a minute, Jim Phelps isn't a bad guy. I did not like that about it. But
yeah.
in general, I thought it was great. But I must say, I am looking forward to Dead Reckoning
Oh yeah, yeah.
because
It looks pretty intriguing, so I'm looking forward to it.
it's just nice to go back to the cinema to be entertained, isn't it?
Yes, that's what we're not getting a lot of lately. Everything's what's the drinker say? The message,
Yeah, yeah.
that you just want to have a good time and not just beat over the head. It's kind of funny because modern writers, who are writing for these mythical modern audiences that don't exist, they think when they arrived or just suddenly found their purpose post 2016, suddenly to take on the world, they think they're the first ones to ever think of have progressive ideas, if you will. I've been watching the old Buck Rogers, enjoying the heck out of that. And I'm not talking about the Gil Gerard. I'm talking about Buster Crabbe,
Yes, yeah,
1939.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Constance Moore, who, she's a beautiful woman, and she was the original Wilma Deering. She wasn't a screamer. She wasn't, your typical damsel in distress. She was a badass. She always stays calm and cool. She's a military officer, no nonsense. There's a guy, twice her size who she maybe not wrestles is not the right word, but she disarms him, skillfully disarms him and shoots him in the face. Literally shoots him in the face, kills him. She was a badass. And that's 1939,
Yeah. And speaking of Buck Rogers and the serials,
Yeah.
before we get to that, I just want to jump back a little bit
Yeah.
and about Indiana Jones.
Oh, yeah.
What's your thoughts on the new Indiana Jones?
Well, it's hard to tell till it comes out. You hear everybody's kind of losing their mind over, well, oh my gosh, they got a woman in it, and that's where kind of when it gets a little ridiculous that a knee jerk, you see a woman on screen, and oh my, it's woke. You're like, well, would you give it a chance? Watch it. I'd like to watch something before I judge it. I'm a little skeptical of. It looks like maybe I don't know if they're going back in time to this Dial of Destiny. That sounds like a time travel
I
thing.
believe it is.
But it could, they could fool us and be something else. But they're definitely, hearkening back to his old, stomping days, fighting Nazis and everything, which is fine. We like, fighting Nazis. Nazis weren't such nice people as we all know. Here's a character and an actor who's pushing 80 years old, or he is 80 years old. We're getting into the late 60s, early 70s, and the main villain, as I understand it, is he's a Nazi in NASA, working in NASA, and he wants to take over the world or whatever the heck. And okay, fine, fun stuff, I guess. You're getting into an era. It's the Cold War era. Nazis are done. They should, at this point, they should be fighting the Soviets. And now, to be fair, they did kind of fight the Soviets in the previous weird, terrible film that that we all cringe at even thinking about. We're in an era where Disney won't dare have a movie that might be in the least bit critical of a communist country. Well, they, but who knows? But that doesn't mean it's not a fun film, and and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
From the trailer, anyway, the de-aging looks amazing.
Yeah. I'm always a little worried about that because the de-aging technology has become incredible, and in probably a few more years, you won't be able to tell the difference. Right now, you can still tell. Who I've seen it do the best, and of course, it's technically the same company, but they're different divisions. Marvel's done a heck of a job with their de-aging stuff. We saw some of the stuff with Tony Stark, with
Yes.
Michael Douglas. That was pretty amazing. I mean, it was practically flawless. Star Wars, not so much. Star
Yeah,
Wars, I mean, you
yes.
can tell. And this is Lucasfilm, so this is same company. So so who knows what they'll do with the de-aging. I always get a little worried about it.
Going back to classic TV, I always
Uh-huh.
remember a Saturday morning running down the stairs and Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon,
Oh yeah.
the Saturday morning serials. Oh, how I loved them. And
Yes.
they were so much fun.
Oh yeah. And Buster Crabe, who plays ironically, well, because Universal got both characters. You had your two famous space heroes. You had Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. And of course, Flash Gordon was sort of an answer to Buck Rogers. Buck Rogers was a character that started in 1928, 29. Flash Gordon was sort of an answer to that. And then Universal somehow gets a hold of both competing characters, and Buster Crabe plays both of them. That's and it was great. In my professional days, I've worked with groups of kids in dealing with education and even production and things like that. And I've shared some of these old black and white serials, and they love them, and they want to see the next episode. Oh, well, we don't have time. We gotta, we gotta, we gotta get some work done. But these like little kids, that they want to see more. And this is an era when they're used to, all big CGI extravaganza, and here's a rocket ship on a string spitting firecracker out at rear, and they love it and they want to see more. It's because they're great stories.
They really are. One of my favorites growing up that I absolutely loved was Time Tunnel.
Oh yeah.
I completely forgot James Darren is in it,
Yes.
who, of
Yes.
course, played Vic Fontaine in Deep Space Nine.
Yes, and James Darren, he kind of seems to come back around with kind of the Trek sphere. He was T.J. Hooker with William Shatner, and
Yeah.
then of course we know him from Deep Space Nine. And throughout the '60s, he was well known as a singer in Gidget style musicals and that sort of thing. And while he and Robert Colbert are still around, I'd love to see them back together again. That was an Irwin Allen production, and he did Lost in Space and the Land of the Giants, and so many of these wonderful kind of little campy series that we all loved as a kid, and that we grew up with. They have a tendency Look at Lost in Space, how it's, starts out. They all start out as kind of a serious, for lack of a better term, even something bordering on hard science fiction, but certainly kind of more of a serious drama type of thing. And then they get increasingly, as it appeals more to kids, they get increasingly kind of campy until they become kind of sitcoms. Time Tunnel didn't get quite to that like Lost in Space did, because it only lasted a season, but you see that same pattern.
Yeah. Probably my favorite series was The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Oh yeah.
That went the same way. That went really campy by season 3.
Yeah, and you know why?
Why?
Batman.
Oh yes, of course.
Batman. They were all trying to compete with Batman, because Batman was blowing everybody out of the water. And it's ironic, because Batman is kind of the classic, kind of dark character, and of course he comes out as this, really funny, kid friendly. Well, he was always kid friendly. It's only in recent years, relatively recent decades, that he suddenly it's practically big kind of off limits to kids, because it's become so dark and demented, which I kind of concerns me a little bit. But it came out is this the campy, kid friendly show in the 60s, and I loved it. It was like my favorite show, and to this day, the best Batmobile ever made, but it was because of Batman that Man from U.N.C.L.E. and even Lost in Space and these different series, they became increasingly campy. Star Trek didn't, for some reason. They held on to that more kind of mature, serious science fiction, but these other shows were trying to compete with Batman.
Yeah, and it killed Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah, it did.
Ratings plummeted. And it was cancelled even though they tried to get it back to more serious by season 4, it was too late, and it was cancelled mid-season.
Yeah, and it hurt to the spinoff, which I think had the potential to be a great spinoff. The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. that came out in the 3rd season, and that fact they run some several crossover episodes between the two of them, and this was a show. First season, Man from U.N.C.L.E. that was it was a serious show. It was a no nonsense kind of show. Yeah, it could be tongue in cheek, but it was not season 2 or 3 Lost in Space. It was, it was a serious show. They were cutting together multiple theatrical movies for international distribution. They'd kind of put in a little more kind of Bond-like little TNA to kind of spice it up for the movies and stuff like that. But they were able to do that because it was a serious show.
And of course, the other one as well that I always loved, the original Mission Impossible TV. And of course, I started watching Mission Impossible because Mr. Spock was in it.
Yes, who replaced Martin Landau. And Martin Landau, and of course, Barbara Bain, Cinnamon Carter, the two iconic characters from that series. And of course, they go on. Of course, they were a real life married couple who went on to star in, do you know what it is? Space 1999.
Yes.
Yes. Which was a British production, but Jerry Anderson did all. And that's another series that started out like super serious, and then what's his name? Friegelberger, or am I getting the name right? Who took over season 3 Star Trek, and then went on and took over season 2.
Oh, Frieberger, yes.
Yeah, takes over season 2 Space 1999, and of course went the campy route.
And of course, another tie between with Mission Impossible was Lee Merriweather was in it.
Oh,
who was also in Time Tunnel.
Yes, and my favorite Catwoman, by the way.
She was Catwoman in Batman. Yeah.
Yes,
she was actually also in a Star Trek episode, season 3 of the original series.
I'm trying to think, who was she in Star Trek?
The episode was That Which Survives. She was just a guest star.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes. I want to touch you. Yes. It's like, no, don't touch me.
And another one as well was The Greatest American Hero. That I loved.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite shows of all time. And of course, the biggest legacy of that show is probably what's arguably more famous than the show, of course, is the song, which was a #1 hit song from Joey Scarberry. Maybe kind of a one-hit wonder for Joey Scarberry, but it's a song that's still played on the radio to this day. I could go on and turn on 99.1. You'll probably hear it.
And of course, speaking of TV music in the 80s, I mean, the go-to guy was Mike Post.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you ask somebody, do you know Mike Post? They go, no. And you just go, well, do you remember every cool 80s TV show? There you go. He did the music for it.
Yes. I miss that the shows of the 80s and the music of those shows from the 80s, and we don't have it anymore. It's become a lost art. We see Strange New Worlds trying to bring it back a little bit, but not very well. The lost art of a writer having the skill to write a single episode. And I like serialized TV. I don't mind serialized TV,
yeah.
but you have to have a skill set to be able to write a 45-minute show, beginning, middle, end. And a lot of your current writers don't know how to do it. And one of the reasons, that's one of the reasons why all the serialized shows suck, because they don't know how to write a story. They don't know how to write a beginning, middle, end. Even a serialized story has to have a beginning, middle, end. And they've even, like, say, Discovery and Picard, where they've outright admitted that, well, we didn't know, they were making it up as they went along. And yeah, well, it shows.
Yeah, and as well, an awful lot of shows today, like if you're thinking about Netflix or any of those, all this magic box.
The mystery box.
Everything
Yes.
has to be, every episode you have to get some sort of ridiculous reveal, and some of them are cool and some of them are stupid. And
yes,
it's, as you said, they just can't write
no
beginning, middle, and end.
Everybody wants to be Lost,
yes.
Yeah, everybody wants to do Lost now. And Lost was cool when it came out, but the part of the problem with Lost is when J.J. Abrams, who I don't know if he coined the term mystery box, but I remember him talking about the mystery box in whatever seminar he was speaking at or something, that he says, and that was back in the days of Lost, that he was talking about the mystery box, and where it starts out, okay, well, this is going somewhere, and it goes, but at some point you have to reveal something that actually makes sense. And it just kind of, we kept mystery boxing to up to the point that Lost, which I enjoyed Lost to the end, but it was clear that, okay, we're really making it up as we go along, and we're not quite sure where we're going with it.
Yeah. A perfect example of brilliant serialized television is Deep Space Nine.
Absolutely. One of the best shows ever made. I'm watching one now called Honey West, and Francis, famous with Forbidden Planet,
Yes.
and she's a PI, credited as being one of the first, if not the first, really kind of badass female TV stars in all these kind of little short-lived series. Logan's Run, which was the showrunner of that one was oh man, I haven't had enough coffee this morning. Oh, come on, Star Trek, lady writer.
DC Fontana.
Thank you, DC Fontana. Sorry for the blank there. Here I am, kind of consider myself a Trek expert. DC Fontana. DC Fontana was showrunner of that show. Head writer of that show. It is a great little series.
Oh, it is. It really is. Touches a bit on reality as well when you see what's happening these days.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Moving on to Star Trek versus Kurtzman Trek. How did one get it so right and the other one got it so wrong? Now I haven't watched Strange New Worlds, to be honest, but I am watching Picard. Hated the first two seasons, and I'll give you some thoughts on season 3 in a minute. But is there any hope, do you think, with Strange New Worlds and Picard?
Terry Matalas, he's doing a good job. I wish he'd turn a light on.
I know.
He's actually made it like darker. I don't mean like the story's darker. I mean, it's like physically darker than it's ever. It's like, please turn a light on. My goodness. Back in the old days, they knew how to light things. That's something they knew better than even, say, back in the TNG era. TNG era, the lighting tended to be kind of flat. DS9 was a little better. Definitely. You go back to the original series, to the shows of the 50s, 60s, 70s. They knew how to light. They knew how to create a mood and everything. They don't know how to light anymore. I went to film school. I'm telling you, they don't know how to do lighting.
Do you ever watch the Shuttle Pod Show? It's a podcast with Connor Trenier and Dominic Keating.
Yeah.
They had Gates McFadden on it there, the most recent one, and she was applauding how wonderful the filming is and how it's amazing how you walk into a dark room, but the cameras are so sensitive that they can pick up light. And I'm going, I guess you haven't watched it because it's really dark.
Yes, I know. Man. But back to what Terry Matalas, one thing that he's doing, and I'll give him credit for, I don't think he's perfect, but man, we see them starting to tie back into the original canon as opposed to Discovery, which was like literally anti-canon, or it was. I mean, it's technically all canon, but I always say on my show, who cares what I think? Don't confuse canon with continuity. There's canon, which just means it's basically it's official. It quote unquote officially happened, but the continuity can be completely off. That is a problem with what we call this Kurtzman trick. We're starting with Discovery, even going back. Let's not forget Kurtzman wrote Star Trek 09. And there's some wonky continuity there. I mean, yeah, we know it's a different timeline, and that fair enough. But the problem was where he doesn't seem to even know the difference between the Federation and Starfleet. He'll use the term interchangeably. When he wrote the script, he's talking about, I think Pike was talking to Kirk in the bar, and he's talking about the Federation is an armada. No, the Federation is not an armada. The Federation is a nation state. the Starfleet is an armada. When he did Discovery, he kind of threw what's his name, that was the kind of the co-creator, whatever his name is, we all know who we're talking about. Anyway, kind of threw him under the bow. Well, that's he set all this stuff up, and okay, fine, fair enough, but you've had plenty of time to correct the ship, and but you don't know how to correct the ship because you've never watched the show. You've I mean, it's so obvious. And I mean, forget about, because everybody talks about visual continuity. Okay, put visual continuity aside. I believe that visual continuity is important, but put that aside for a second. Story continuity, and I've talked about this on my show. Story continuity is what they screw up bad or worse than anything visual on Discovery, and even into Strange New Worlds. Well, even though Strange New Worlds is vastly improved, they're getting major story points wrong. And this is where I gave series 1 and 2 Picard some credit, even though the writing was terrible. The writing was not good, but I could forgive it a bit because at least they were mostly, at least in season 1, they were mostly getting the continuity right. It was at least a universe that was recognizable. Discovery is just completely, first couple of seasons, just completely unrecognizable as being in the same universe as Kirk and Spock and Picard, right? Then they did get certain little things wrong, like the City on the Edge of Forever, which we know happened in what city? New York, right? Suddenly it's apparently it's been retconned to Los Angeles.
Okay.
No. And little things like completely destroyed Assignment Earth. A lot of people don't like Assignment Earth. A lot of younger folks don't like Assignment Earth. I love Assignment Earth, one of my favorite episodes of all time. I wish it had been a series. It would have been right there alongside the Man from U.N.C.L.E., Mission Impossible, all that. Suddenly Wesley is connected to Gary 7. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Oh, come on. The Travelers are now heading up the bunch from Assignment Earth. No. Completely destroyed the continuity on that.
Yeah.
But Terry Matalas is at least attempting to bring back some of the classic canon, and that and sometimes it gets a little over the top, with the member berries and everything, because you can do too much and it starts to get silly. But what did I love seeing more than anything? They showed a real Constitution class ship.
Yes.
Not the Discovery Prize. They showed the actual, and it's not the Enterprise. It's some they're called the New Jersey. I don't know where. I don't know if that's out of a novel or if they just made it up or what. But who cares? It's an actual Connie.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
I
you
did
love
that. I actually only watched episode 6 today, and I thought that scene was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
it really was.
There was a NX class, the refit NX class,
Yes.
which I missed that, but I think I saw that on I don't know if it was Trek Yards or one of those shows. At least the original Connie did exist, where Discovery and even Strange New World has tried to take it out of canon, and even first season Picard tried to remove it. I could understand and forgive licensing issues because that's a real thing. That's a real thing. But the deal is they didn't make it like Discovery. My God, it wasn't 25% different. It was maybe like 10% here, a couple little Easter eggs here and there, which the Easter eggs were usually wrong, canonically wrong. No, it was like 80, 90% unrecognizable. If only it was 25% different.
The Klingons in Discovery were so different, it wasn't even Star Trek. You know,
Oh,
in
I
fact,
know, I know.
I
And
remember.
here we go. Worf. Worf looks like Worf,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Although, how many times, and this is one of my gripes against one of my many gripes about Picard, the series, is how many times in the Next Generation, and especially Deep Space Nine, did we hear Worf and other Klingons talk about honor
Yeah.
and code and nobility, and you do not strike down an unarmed man and things like this because there's no honor in it.
Right,
And what's
right,
the first
right.
thing Worf does in his introduction in season 3? He kills an unarmed Ferengi.
My feelings on the Klingon honor and all that, the Klingons and the Vulcans and the Romulans, they all have some things in common where they give lip service to things, and this is not unrealistic, quite frankly, because we look at our own real life scenarios and various politicians who will give lip service to how perfect and wonderful they are, and of course you find out they're really a-holes.
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, and that's why, like Enterprise, a lot of people complained about the Vulcans in Enterprise. I actually thought they got the Vulcans right, because I thought that from the very beginning. And I always love a good Vulcan villain, because the
Mhm.
reason is, think of a Vulcan villain who is going to be cold and calculating, who doesn't care who he kills. I think a lot of people's idea of the Vulcans kind of comes ironically from like third season original series, where Spock is this complete pacifist, and and from that they kind of get this, I think, incorrect notion. Folks get this incorrect notion that kind of Vulcans can do no wrong, sort of thing. And first of all, they're basing it on one character, not an entire people. And you go back to early Spock. He says you need to kill Gary Mitchell now before he kills us. And maybe that's the logical thing to do, but I mean, it's cold. You're going to take a fellow Starfleet officer and you're going to basically murder him, or at least maroon him, before he can do you harm. And maybe that's the logical thing to do. The idea that a Vulcan can be cold and just pragmatic, that can make for great villains. And so I
Mhm.
thought, I don't really have a problem with the Vulcans in Enterprise. I thought it made it intriguing. And in fact, I thought when they brought in the Romulans to say, oh, kind of the Romulans were the ones who were really behind all the shenanigans, to me, that's a little bit of a cop-out. Every time that there's a Vulcan villain or a Vulcan chicanery going on, and you find, oh, it's really the Romulans that were behind it. Cop out. Cop out. No.
And of course, remember as well that it was Spock who told Kirk that Edith Keeler must die in
Yes.
City on the Edge of Forever.
Yes. Yeah, because that was what was logical.
Exactly.
Talking about first season Discovery, they took a clearly mammalian species, all right, that this was a humanoid, and when I say humanoid, I mean literally humanoid, as in they look like us. Later on they had the bumps and everything, but they still basically look like us, right?
Yeah.
They took a clearly mammalian species and turned them into a reptilian species.
Yes.
Scaly skin, they have claws, clearly not even the same species. Now you could argue maybe they're related. I mean, kind of like you could kind of tie it almost like to the Xindi, how you got different branches of the same, species or something, however that works.
Mhm.
But this is clearly a different species altogether. And now the Klingons are a big empire. And it makes sense to have different species within that empire. That's fine. I wouldn't have been opposed if they wanted to do something radically different with like this particular sect of Klingons, that maybe they were from some little sect somewhere in the empire. Of course not, they tied it right to Kronos. But let's say, even hypothetically, they're some little sect of the empire, and maybe they even consider themselves the true Klingon, yada, yada, whatever. Wouldn't it have been cooler? Wouldn't it have been really awesome? Imagine Burnham and crew came across this weird sect of Klingons, and they were this ancient sect of Klingons, which to me, that's kind of intriguing. That could be intriguing. And what if before Burnham and crew got there, what if you had an actual D7 cruiser comes upon this this ancient sarcophagus ship. And they're kind of like, what the hell is this? What is going? And you have, imagine an original series style Klingon there in command. What if it was Tyler or something? Who knows? But you have an original series Klingon there in command, and his wife is like in TNG era Klingon or something, you know, where you have these two sets of Klingons, because we had already that's the thing. They had, you know, people that say, well, look, that's how it used to be, and this is how it is. Okay, fine, fair enough. Except that Enterprise and DS9 both actually addressed it in canon, in continuity, and then Discovery throws that out again. What if we had these, you know, two sets of classic Klingons on the bridge together, and they come across this ancient set of Klingons, and it doesn't go well for them. You know, they get blown up or whatever. And of course, here's this new sect that are trying to rise from the ancient ashes or something, and maybe it ties back to the Herc or something. Who knows? That would have been intriguing. It's something, you know, within the Empire, and then they spread out, and maybe it turns into a war or something. That might have been intriguing. But no, they tried to replace them.
In season 7 of Next Generation, the awful episode where they're all de-evolving, and we see Worf evolving like 1,000 years earlier, what Klingons were. They could have worked it in that way as well.
Yeah, because that terrible episode, you look back and say, oh, you know, that actually looked like almost like a Discovery Klingon.
Yeah. They could have done something.
Yes.
But,
I mean, there's,
and you know what I just thought of there as well. Actually, the showrunner was Brian Fuller. Discovery showrunner.
Brian Fuller. Thank you. Yes.
But it's also the way they have made the shows dark.
Yes.
You know. And bleak. Now, I don't have a problem with that, because we go back to Deep Space Nine.
Oh yeah. I love Dark Trek,
and that got very bleak at times.
Yeah. TNG, particularly early TNG, it annoyed me as a young man, teenager, and in my early 20s in college, that the Federation was suddenly this Puritan, you know, we can do no wrong, and we are evolved, and our poop don't stink type of thing, and we never even disagree with each other, sort of. And I mean, it was so ridiculous. It's like, and people say that's what Star Trek is. Like, have you ever watched the original series?
Yeah.
Star Trek is particularly season 1, particularly, that was a dark show. That was a very dark and moody show, and I like Dark Trek. I will watch Deep Space Nine anytime it's on the air. Pretty much the same with Enterprise. I mean, Enterprise is a little bit of a darker show too. Voyager for me was always kind of I mean, it's okay. It's just sort of a TNG light type of thing, you know. If TNG is on, I mean, I'll watch it, but I mean, I tend to skip it. I've never been a big TNG fan, and so I actually don't mind the darker take that kind of was in the TNG movies, and particularly Picard. The writing may suck, but I don't mind the darker take on it. You know, the idea that Trek can't be dark and be good, I reject that, because look at the original series. There's hardly a series that is darker than the original series, except for Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine, in my opinion, and this is where I would probably differ with people who grew up on the TNG era, DS9 is, I think, the true philosophical successor to the original series, not TNG. TNG is kind of the outlier of the entire franchise, because DS9 is darker, and the Federation is not so unrealistically perfect. Voyager, to a degree, certainly Enterprise, and although Enterprise was more TNG like in that regard, and which was kind of a little bit out of character, because the TNG Enterprise should be a little bit more darker leading into TOS, but then they kind of switched that towards the end of the series.
And as dark as DS9 was, but it still needs to have those principles of Star Trek. It was Ira Stephen Baird, the showrunner of Deep Space Nine, said, "This is Deep Space Nine. Don't get comfortable." And it never let the viewer get comfortable. And it was amazing. Some of their takes on racism, religion, and tolerance.
Yes.
I mean, it really went for the jugular.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the characters still had the same noble qualities. of the
Yes.
original series, and TNG and Voyager to a point. I never really liked Voyager, to be honest.
Yeah,
And
no,
Enterprise.
it's not my favorite for sure.
No, and it could have been so good, but anyway. But
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what I think Kurtzman is missing with Discovery and Picard, is that quality of character.
Mhm.
It's not there.
And maybe he might have had a better handle on it if he had just watched the show.
Exactly. And all
I
he has, and I guarantee you, as well as the writers, they have a Google level knowledge
Yes.
of the material they're handling.
I know. I mean, my God, it was so clear. You saw it in the J.J. Kurtzman movies, but you especially saw it, which, like I said, you can kind of forgive because it's supposed to be a different timeline, whatever. Well, here's the one that's supposed to be the same timeline, so they claim, and it's not even recognizable, but throw the with the visual. Okay, visual reboot, whatever. Okay, fine. The concept of continuity was so lost on them because, oh, hey, look, we got a Tribble. We know about the Tribbles. Oh, look, here's a Gorn. Yeah, well, they haven't met the Gorn yet. Yeah. If they had just watched the show to get the continuity right, it would have been so much better. Watch
When
the
Nicholas
show.
Meyer was hired
Yeah,
to direct Star Trek II, he had never seen the show. He was aware of the original series, but never
exactly.
seen it. And what was the first thing he did? He went and watched all 3 seasons several times
Yes,
to
yes. And
understand the characters.
what was the name of the producer? He created $6 Million Man, and of course became
Oh, Harv Bennett?
Harv Bennett. Yeah, yeah. Harv Bennett. That's what he did. He'd never seen the show, and you know what he did? He said, "Give me some videotapes," and he
Yeah.
sat down and he watched the show. I've said over and over. I've said this on my show. I've said this on other people's show. Some people think that you have to be an expert going in. No, you don't have to be an expert going in. You have to become an expert.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And it starts by and it's easy. Watch the damn show. It's
It's so
not
true.
that hard. Even if you give him a little bit of a pass, like that Kurtzman will say, okay, maybe this was thrown on him or whatever, and says we need this out right away, or and which I'm giving him all benefit of the doubt, which is BS. But let's give him all benefit of the doubt. Okay, one thing I do have some admiration for Kurtzman because he is extremely prolific. He does a lot of shows, a lot of films. Some of them not so great, but some of them pretty good. Like Hawaii Five-0, he did a great job with Hawaii Five-0. But if you're going to claim that I am going to write a prequel, a literal prequel to an original series I have never even watched,
Yeah,
there's a problem there.
exactly.
So maybe he screwed up in the first season, but as he continued to go along, and it's clear he's still 4 or 5 years in, has never watched the show. That's a problem. There was an interview that he gave, and this was right around the time that they did the crossover into the Mirror Universe, right? He mentioned something. I mean, he kind of told on himself right there because apparently somebody on the staff did happen to mention, oh, well, we should tie in the Defiant. And he admitted this on camera, saying that he had no idea what the guy was talking about. A staff member told him that In a Mirror Darkly was a thing, and he had no idea. Why doesn't he know this? He's in an interview for Picard. He's talking about Picard has quit the Federation. No, dum-dum. He has not left the Federation. He literally lives in the Federation. He lives in France, which is on Earth, which is the literal capital of the Federation. He left Starfleet. It's like, here we are now 5 years into this or 4 years into it, whatever it is. And he still doesn't know the difference between the Federation and Starfleet because he's never watched the show.
I remember in an interview with Nicholas Meyer, and he said that when they finally filmed the Spock's death scene at the end, Nicholas Meyer said, that's when I realized the true power of Star Trek.
Yes.
It's such a shame Kurtzman doesn't do that either.
No. Because Nicholas Meyer, he got it. Him and Harv, they got it. He went back, and Nicholas Meyer, they went back, and as you said, they watched the show. You don't have to be imagine you or I were let's say what's a show that maybe you and I have never watched or cared about. I don't know, let's Dynasty. Okay. Moonjumper, Dan, we're going to hire you two guys to write a sequel or a prequel, whatever it is. Sequel, prequel, doesn't matter, to Dynasty. What are you and I going to do? before we have our next meeting, before I write a single outline, before I write a single treatment, I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the show and become an expert in it, because that makes sense.
Imagine us being made showrunners of Sex and the City. You know, I literally I've seen one episode.
Never, I've never seen it. Yeah.
Okay,
So what are we going to do? We're
One
going to watch
episode.
it.
Literally, first thing I would do.
Yeah.
I hope that never happens because I don't want to watch it. But
Yeah. It's like yeah, true. It's like, man, I would wouldn't it be a dream to be able to write for one of these shows? I was like, oh, Sex and the City. I always say you have to know the rules before you break the rules. Kurtzman wants to break all the rules and just, throw the rules out and just do your own thing. Okay. Star Trek II, Nicholas Meyer, Harv Bennett, they broke the rules, right? They broke the rules. But you know what they did? They learned the rules before they broke them, right? Because you don't want a new show to be just a complete clone of the old show, right? You want it to have its own identity. I agree with that. Deep Space Nine is a completely different show than The Next Generation, but it's in continuity with it,
Exactly.
Yeah. Mission Impossible 1988, it goes in a maybe slightly different direction. Same thing with the movies, which are supposed to be in continuity with the original series as well. Goes in a completely different direction, but it's in continuity. They at least watched the show before they started a new one. And so you have to know the rules before you break the rules.
Oh, absolutely. But I think for now we leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. This was great fun.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And first of all, I always love your videos, and it's such a pleasure to finally get to speak with you in person, or not literally in person, but from across the pond. At least hear your voice back and forth live has been a real pleasure, and what a wonderful conversation.
It was indeed. It was indeed. And hopefully maybe you can come back another time and we'll go with part 2.
Absolutely. And I'd love to have you on my show.
Oh, anytime. I'd be delighted.
Not that many people care what I think, but let's tell them anyway,
Absolutely. But anyway, I'd be delighted to be a guest.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Moonjumper. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Until the next time, Hailing Frequencies closed. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell too. Thank you.